Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Thursday. The weekend is drawing ever closer. I hope you're having a good day wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. All eyes now firmly focused on the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday for the first North London derby of the season. Huge game, especially for Arsenal going into it on the back of such uncertain news in terms of their midfield and there's some of their players who are out anyway. Can they make a statement? Can they go to Tottenham against the odds almost and get a result? That would be huge, huge for Arsenal. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But we've got the massive, massive breaking news this morning that Mikel Arteta has agreed a new Arsenal contract. So we're going to talk about that as well as going through some of what you've been saying in relation to discussions we've had in the last couple of shows, especially in terms of myself and James Benji's discussion yesterday about the North London derby and whether Ethan Nwaneri might well be thrown into the deep end by Mikel Arteta in the absence of Martin Odegaard. But let's start on the big news. Mikel Arteta, I understand, has agreed a new 3-year contract with Arsenal. That announcement will be coming pretty soon, as far as I'm aware. And look, it was always going to happen. I've sat here for a long, long time, and whenever anyone's asked me about this and whether they should be worried and everything like that, I was always saying, no, this is something that's going to be done. He was very happy. Arsenal were obviously very happy. And the relationship between everyone, between the club, between Arteta, the people above him, are all very, very good. And he was always going to stay. He was always going to sign this new contract. But it is still very, very nice to have it done, to have it agreed, and to soon have it announced, because it just ends any sort of uncertainty. I've spoken about it many, many times, that if this were to run on a little bit into the season, every week, I've been there before. I remember when it was Arsene Wenger coming towards his end of his contract, and I'd be sitting at London Colney in press conferences week after week after week, and every single time it would always be, when you sign a new contract, is your contract happening? And it just became this big thing. And as much as Arsenal and Wenger at the time tried to deflect away from it, insist it wasn't creating any sort of uncertainty at the club, it always felt like it was. And so to have this done now for Arteta and have it signed and done and agreed, it just ends that. There's going to be no questions about that. All the focus can just be on football. Now, there was never any expectation that he was going to go. All the summer signings, the first thing, Mikel Merino, for example, coming over from Real Sociedad, that is not a move he would have made if he didn't have assurances that Mikel Arteta was going to sign his new contract. He wouldn't have come over, he rejected chances to stay in Spain, to potentially go to Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, because he wanted to come to Arsenal and he wanted to work under Mikel Arteta. And the first thing him and his agents would have been saying was, look, you've got under a year left on your contract. Are you going to stay? The fact that he still made this move, there's always definitely assurances would have been given to new signings that he was going to be staying. I mean, Mikel admitted it himself when he spoke last time, when he was asked about the contract. You could tell in his answer and the way he gave it. He spoke very warmly about how we felt at the club, and he said, look, once the transfer window's done, then we're going to really focus on the contract and getting it done. And he made it pretty clear at that point. I think that was, again, to try and end any sort of uncertainty. It was like, look, it may not be done yet, it may not be agreed yet, but it's going to be done. And he's been true to his word. The transfer window shut, not so long ago, and now we're going to be soon getting the announcement that Mikel Arteta is staying at Arsenal, and it can only be a good thing for the club. I know there's some of you out there who, I see it in the comments, who are like, Arteta, get him out. He shouldn't be here anymore. He's, the transfer window was a joke. I mean, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Of course they are. I understand that, but I don't actually understand that thought process behind that. I think these next 3 years are going to be massive for Mikel Arteta. I'll explain why. You kind of look at the work that's been done now and all the work since he took over. I mean, by the time this 3-year contract is up, he's going to be at Arsenal 8 years. I mean, that is a long time, especially in this era of football, if he stays for the duration of the 3 years. I mean, that basically takes him up to be a proper long-serving Arsenal manager if he gets to 8 years. But you look at the work that's gone on. When he arrived, Arsenal were awful. Let's put it that way. They're in a dreadful state. The squad was awful. The wages were ridiculous, paying players that they should not have been paying. And for the last 5 years that he's been at the club, he's overseen a huge overhaul. He sorted the squad out into now what is one of the most valuable squads in world football, packed full of young, exciting players on long-term contracts who every other club in the world would want to sign. And the building blocks have all led to this point. He's laid the foundations. The foundations are very, very strong now. I mean, they could have won titles. They probably, you look at the last 2 years, they should have won at least one of the titles in the last 2 years. But they've been at the point, they've got to the point now where they are perennial title challenges. And that's all the good work that's gone on in the last 5 years of righting the wrongs of previous decisions that have been taken at the club to lay this foundation where you're suddenly looking at Arsenal, as I said, with one of the most valuable squads in the world, with just everyone pulling in the same direction, which is just worlds apart from where it was when he came in. He's done all of that hard work, not just him, but the whole club have done that. They've aligned themselves together and built this really solid foundation, this solid base. I think these next 3 years for Arteta are going to be absolutely huge in terms of, I don't know if you want to say finishing his story, because to be honest, if he does really, really well, then I hope he signs another contract 3 years down the line and we carry this on. But that he is now at the point where it is time to try and take advantage of the brilliant work that has gone on in the previous 5 years. Now is the time to start winning and to start really trying to pack full the trophy cabinet with some trophies and some success, because ultimately that's what he's going to be judged on. This is Arsenal Football Club. You've got to win trophies because that's what they've done their entire history, and that's what they're trying to do now. It's obviously very easy to say that. It's a lot harder to actually do it in practice because you're going up against an incredibly difficult team in Manchester City. When it comes to winning the title, you're going to get up against City and the best that Europe has to offer. When it comes to winning the Champions League, a trophy Arsenal have never won in their history, if you include the European Cup in that. So it's easier said than done. I'll go and win trophies now, because it's very, very hard to win trophies. It's the hardest thing in football. But Arsenal are good enough to win trophies. This squad is good enough to win trophies. I'm absolutely convinced of that. Like I said, they probably should have won something in the last couple of years. But that's why I just think these next 3 years are going to be so crucial to whether it's how Mikel's remembered or whatever. I just think now is the time to win. All the hard work has been done in the foundations, and now is the time to take advantage of that and get this team over the line. And it's what he wants. You ask Mikel Arteta it, and his sole focus now is on winning trophies, is on getting Arsenal to the very top of English football, European football. That's what he wants to do. That's what he thinks he can do. He wouldn't sign this new contract if he didn't. And I just sit here, fingers crossed, and hope that he does do it. But my honest opinion, and I'm sure I'm an Arteta fan. I think what he's done is fantastic, and I'm delighted that he signed this new contract. I know others aren't, and I accept that. It's each to their own opinion. But I'm personally delighted that he signed this contract because I think he's the best thing for Arsenal right now. And I think he can get Arsenal over the line. I really am confident that he can get Arsenal over the line in these next 3 years and get them what we all want, which is either a Premier League trophy, a Champions League trophy, or both, or anything like that. And so, yeah, let me know your thoughts on it all. I'll be down at London Colney tomorrow for Mikel's press conference. That's due to kick off at 1:30 tomorrow. I'm sure that this will be a big topic of conversation when we're all there, this new contract for him. So it'll be interesting to see what he has to say there. But let me know your thoughts on it. Are you happy? Are you like me? Do you think this is a good thing for Arsenal? Is now the time that he has to win it? Is this a contract where he has to bring significant silverware to the club? If you're unhappy at that decision for him to sign a new contract, let me know why in the comments below. I'll bring them all together. And I'm sure tomorrow morning in a show before I go to London Colney that I record, we'll go over some of what you have been saying about this new contract for Mikel Arteta. Okay, moving on to the game on Sunday, of course. We're still waiting for news on Martin Odegaard. Arsenal yet to announce anything officially in terms of the captain. There are suggestions that the early signs with Odegaard are hopeful and that it might not be as bad as it could have been. Like I said yesterday when I reported what Norway team doctor had been saying, he said, 3 weeks minimum, anything, 3 weeks is a bonus, basically. It could be longer, but it doesn't look like there's a fracture. Arsenal are still assessing Odegaard day to day. He had another scan yesterday, I believe, and they're assessing those results as we speak. The problem is at the moment, the ankle's still very, very swollen by all accounts. And so the scan results are not perfect. Sometimes you have to wait for the swelling to really go down when you do the scans to really determine the true extent of the damage. But there are suggestions that the early signs when it comes to Odegaard's injury is that it might not be too bad. And Arsenal are pretty hopeful that he could be back sooner rather than later. And it might not be the lengthy layoff that many of us were obviously expecting when we saw the pictures of the injury and how he left the field against Austria. But we'll wait and see on that. Again, as I said, I'll be at London Colney tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see if Mikel Arteta opens up on it a little bit more in terms of when Odegaard will be back. Look, I think we're all accepting he's not going to be involved against Tottenham at the weekend. I think that's pretty clear. Gabriel Jesus, I don't, as far as I'm aware from conversations I've had, it hasn't been ruled out yet of Sunday. The plan was for him to return to training this week. And if that is the case, if that has happened, then he's got a chance for Sunday. Again, I'm sure Mikel will give a little bit of an update. There might even be some pictures or video footage from London Colney over the next 24 hours as well. So that would be a boost if Jesus is available, even if he is, though, after missing so much football. I can't imagine he'd be considered for the starting 11 at the weekend. But still, if Jesus is back and in the squad, that would certainly be a little bit of a lift, given we're all expecting Martin Odegaard to indeed miss out. I was thinking who's going to be captain on Sunday, because obviously there's no Martin Odegaard, there's no Declan Rice. I think it will probably be Bukayo Saka wearing the armband on Sunday, I would imagine, which will be a big moment for him, of course. Obviously, he's worn the armband before. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see a picture of him there wearing the armband. But to captain your team, and let's face it, Arsenal are Bukayo's team. You've come through the club from a 7-8-year-old boy, whatever it was when he first arrived, to lead your team out at a North London derby at Spurs as a 23-year-old. It's going to be a hugely proud moment for Bukayo Saka. I was looking at who else it could be in the team. It's not going to be Saliba. It's not going to be Gabriel. It's not going to be Ben White. Tim, I think the only other potential option, if he played, maybe would be Jorginho, but I think I'd be very surprised if it's not Bukayo Saka on Sunday, captain in Arsenal. And I just think that'd be a fantastic moment for him. And hopefully he can crown that moment with a goal. He scored there last season, of course, in excellent fashion. He's caused the own goal the season before. Can't remember who it was. He headed into his own net in the 2-0 win the season before. He's got a very good record when it comes to scoring against Tottenham, and it'd be fantastic if he could add to that. It's going to be a lot of scrutiny, I suppose is the right word, or responsibility on Bukayo's shoulders in the absence of Martin Odegaard. You'd say he's Arsenal's most creative player without Odegaard in the team, with that delivery he's got from the right-hand side. And so there's going to be a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. I'm sure he'll step up, because we know Bukayo Saka, we know what he's like. He likes responsibility. He's not scared of it. Look at what he did at the Euros in the summer on the back of what happened in the final against Italy last time out. And yet he still stepped up, took that penalty in the shootout against Switzerland, scored. That's just the type of character he is. And I'm sure he'll show that again on Sunday in the absence of Martin Odegaard. Addy here has got in touch and he says, why is no one talking about Saka playing as a 10? He's got the most assists of any Arsenal player in the last 2 seasons, I think, and you could play Martinelli on the right. I do feel Martinelli on the right would help him, because he always has his head down and tries to play across with his weaker foot. Why not with his stronger foot? Saka and Martinelli looks like a good mix, really. And you're not, when you say no one's talking about Saka playing as 10, I think quite a few people are, because I've seen it. You're not the first person that I've seen who suggested it. And I mean, it would be an interesting option. The only thing is, if you're doing that, Arsenal are going to be so disrupted anyway this weekend because of the lack of usual midfield. There's going to be square pegs in round holes somewhere. You're either going to be dropping Kai Havertz out of his natural position now and playing him in midfield. You're either going to be tweaking the system and the formation and potentially playing Partey and Jorginho more as a pair rather than having a midfield three. If you're doing that already and then you're also moving, you're rejigging your attack completely and playing Bukayo Saka not in his usual position. You're moving Martinelli across, so he's not playing in his usual position. You've then got, it's not just uncertainty in the midfield and a mix and match midfield, it's also a mix and match attack. So you're disrupting things further up the pitch as well. So I'd be a little bit worried about doing that. I'm sure he could do it. We've seen Bukayo, he's great when he cuts inside on that left foot and gets into those central areas. We've seen it before. And he does link up so well with, say, Ben White on the overlap. So it's definitely an option. But I'd just be a little bit concerned about doing too much, moving too many things around when you're going to have to do that in midfield as well. Here's one from Hardick who says, hey, Charles, looking at the current situations, looking at the current injury situation at Arsenal, would you take 2 draws against Spurs and City? Now, lots of people have asked this question, and it's a no-win situation for me, because if I say yes and everyone's like, oh, you're so defeated, that won't be good enough, you've got to win 2 games. Would I be devastated if Arsenal drew at Spurs and drew at Manchester City? No, I wouldn't. I think if you draw with the issues that Arsenal have got at the moment, the absentees that they've got, if they go to the Etihad at this stage of the season and do not allow Man City to win and take 3 points off them, there's no way you can look at that and say that is not a good result for Arsenal. Absolutely not. You look at the issues they've got now going into the Spurs game, and again, I could not sit here and say a draw is going to be a bad result for Arsenal. I don't want a draw. I want a win. Of course I do. But I don't think it'd be a bad result. If Arsenal were to walk away with 2 points from these two games, avoid defeat in both, I think given the situation, it would just be like, right, that's not a bad job done. Just move on, get your players back and really kick on. I think the crucial thing is not letting City get too far away in what is a difficult time for Arsenal at the moment because of the injuries and the disruption they've got. You don't want City to suddenly move miles away. So if you can at least take points off them in that game, get a draw, don't let them move another 3 points ahead of you. That wouldn't be a bad thing. So look, would I take it? I wouldn't say no, but obviously I would much prefer it if Arsenal could go. If Arsenal got 4 points from these two games, I would absolutely take that 100%. If they could beat Spurs, or even better than that, draw at Spurs and then go and beat Manchester City, 100% I would be all over that. But I wouldn't be overly disappointed with 2 draws, I have to say, because I'm a little bit worried going into these games with so many players out and so much uncertainty in terms of who is going to play where. Now, we've got a couple of you here responding to what myself and James in Inside Arsenal Extra Time were talking about yesterday. We were debating the Nwaneri decision, Ethan Nwaneri decision facing Mikel Arteta in the absence of Martin Odegaard. We were talking about whether throwing him in from the start against Tottenham would be a good thing. Both of us basically said, look, I don't think I wouldn't be overly concerned if he did start the game. I'm sure he could handle it because what we've seen from him so far suggests that he's not overawed by any sort of situation. But we were also saying that it might be the wrong game to throw him in for his first start away at Spurs in all that intensity when you've not got your experienced midfielders that you usually have around you. Got a couple of reactions to that from King Gar. He says, Charles, I don't comment on your show. Normally, I'm going to add my view to the others. The notion that there should be an ideal time to get Nwaneri involved in the game is nonsense. Odegaard is injured. Let Nwaneri play. He's good enough to play. It is undoubtedly a perfect moment for him to play and shine. He's good enough. Yamal has shown that youngsters can make a difference. If Arteta trusts the youngsters, this is his time to show us that he genuinely cares about developing young players. Arteta should not only talk the talk, but he should walk the walk. Give Nwaneri a chance. The Ballot Gunner says, I feel this is just being overly protective of Nwaneri. The lad doesn't look like the kind of player who'll be fazed by the North London derby. He may not have a magnificent game, but I don't foresee it breaking him. Give the lad a chance. If both Partey and Jorginho play alongside him, he'll have enough protection. The notion that Partey and Jorginho don't have the legs is just a myth. It's both of you very good points. I think when you say, though, the top one where it says, if Arteta trusts his youngsters, this is his time to show us that he genuinely cares about developing the young players. So that's the thing. When you talk about genuinely caring and developing the young players, I think there's got to be a lot of thought put into the fact of whether this is the right moment to play him in. And I know Yamal is often thrown up as an example, but he's almost a one-off. He's not the norm, is he? He's an absolute once in a generation type player. And who knows, Ethan might be. And this might be the moment that he really does shine if you give him a chance. And as I said, I wouldn't be against it. I wouldn't go there and be disappointed. I'd be excited if I got there and saw the team sheet on Sunday and Nwaneri was playing. Absolutely, I'd be excited about it. And I would have no concerns that he wouldn't step up and perform because, as I said, nothing seems to faze him so far. And he seems perfectly at home in this type of environment. But I do think a lot of consideration needs to be put into it, as I explained in yesterday's show. So I don't think he'd be in the starting 11 that I would pick. I've seen, the starting 11 I'd add would be a 4-2-3-1, and I'd have Partey and Jorginho. I'd have Havertz playing as a 10, Saka, Martinelli and Trossard. That would be the starting 11 I would go for this game personally. But as I said, I would have no issues with Nwaneri starting, and it would be great if he did, and it would be a huge moment for him, and it would certainly be a big show of faith from Mikel Arteta as well. Right, that's it from me, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. As always, I really do appreciate it. Like I said, I'll be back in the morning to talk things all over again. And if you do want to get involved in that show, give me your thoughts to Arteta agreeing in his new Arsenal contract. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll pull some of them together and get them included in that show. Until then, have a fantastic Thursday, everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.